guys, it's Eric here at Farpoint Restorations. Check it out. A pretty simple job today, but if you've never done it before, it's not always going to seem that way. We're going to do rear brake pads on a Toyota Sienna. Now this is for the second gen of Toyota Siennas. That goes from 04 all the way to 2011. This one that I'm working on today is a 2010. And I picked up these brake pads super cheap on eBay. Look for a part number here, 7895-D995M. No name, like basic. In fact, I think they were used, like not used like used and taken off the car, but I think the package may have been bought and sold a few times, like somebody changed their mind on what they needed. Anyway, I am going to pull the wheel off the car, get the camera close up in there, and I will show you what little needs to be done. Tool-wise, you're going to need a pair of channel locks, 14 or 12 millimeter wrench, your brake pads, maybe some brake cleaner, and a couple of rags. And lastly, if your kit doesn't come with it, you'll need some brake grease. I've got a little packet of brake grease I'm going to be reusing that I didn't need for a separate kit, and that's all we're going to need to get this job done. So let's hop on over to the rear axle of this Sienna, and I'll show you how easy it is. All right, well, here we are over at the rear wheel. This is our caliper, this is our caliper bracket, and that is our rotor. If you need to replace the rotors, I'll make another video on that someday down the road, but for today, these are not warped or worn out, and so we're just going to do a pad slap. That's what that's called. We got our 14 millimeter wrench, and down here at the bottom and the top, we have two 14 millimeter bolts that are sticking out. We only need to take the bottom one out. So break that loose and unscrew it and set that aside. And then sometimes you have to use your screwdriver or something like that to get this thing pried open. Other times they just open right up. This one seems like it's not stuck really badly. And when you lift up, you're going to actually lift up and slide it back like so. We're going to expose this top slide pin, and we're just going to lay that caliper up like that, exposing our brake pads. And these are not looking too good. Let me get better lighting on this. All right, so here's our brake pads. You can see these are kind of stuck in there. They don't want to come out. I was hearing on this the actual noise coming off of that. You can see they're toast. So go ahead and remove both of those. Wow, this side extremely well worn. So very, very good time to replace these. We got their life out of them. Now my kit being so cheap, it didn't even include these anti-rattle clips, but you're going to want to remove those because we're going to clean those up. So take those off. These are actually made out of like stainless steel or sometimes chrome, and we're going to want to clean those. So that is what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to pause the camera. I'll use a little brake cleaner and a wire brush. And speaking of wire brush, while we're wire brushing, we probably ought to wire brush the areas if the car lives in a rusty area, right here and here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, as you can see here, I've got the clips cleaned up, and now I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to take a little bit of brake clean. You don't even really need to use brake clean, but I'm just going to use a wire brush here to kind of clean the surfaces a little bit in case there's any rust buildup to where those clips sit, because we want our pads to move freely in these brackets here. And so we're just going to get any kind of surface rust or built up rust, hopefully knock that off a little bit. There we go. And we'll clean that off. A little more brake cleaner and a rag here. And of course, if you live in an area like Florida or something that doesn't have real rust issues, this probably won't be necessary. Okay, so we can go ahead and reinstall these. They just slide back into place. You kind of lower them down and they snap right in. See that? Do the same thing up on top. They just kind of snap into place. And that's it. And if you're concerned you don't have it on right, you can spin it a little bit and make sure it's not scraping. Okay, let's talk about these boots. You want to inspect the two boots here to make sure. Okay, so we have our boots here. We want to make sure those boots are intact, not damaged. And then we're going to take our slide pin out. The top one came out with the caliper. We're going to take the bottom one off. And again, we're going to clean that off. If for some reason it's rusty, you get a wire brush and clean that up. Usually it's just a matter of getting the grease off of it. Like so. And then we're going to use a little packet of grease that came with it, or you can buy a bottle of brake grease. And you're just going to put some fresh brake grease on there. And you can go. You can't use regular grease on this, okay? You have to use brake grease. See that? There we go. And then we'll slide that back in. You got to make sure that the boot, it pops down completely onto the boot. Now the upper one here that's attached to the brake caliper, we'll do the same thing. Clean that off and put some fresh stuff on there. Once we have it clean, before we put grease on, we need to retract our puck here. And so I've got a pair of channel locks. These are just old Craftsman ones, back when Craftsman was still a thing. And we're just going to squeeze that gradually, gently. Don't want to go crazy on it. And if for some reason it doesn't want to retract, that's an indication that there's a problem with your caliper and it will need to be rebuilt or replaced. I have a video on the channel on how to rebuild a caliper, although not many people do that anymore. Most of the time they just replace it. Okay, mine went all the way back fairly easily. You can see it's now in place. Want to make sure your dust boot's looking good there, and ours is. So we're good to put some grease on this. And you can't use regular grease, it has to be brake grease. You put regular grease on there, it will actually cause it to, the rubber on this to swell and fail very rapidly. There we go. Okay. And any you got on your finger, you can also put a little on the chrome or on the stainless steel here. And that's just going to help those pads as they move back and forth. Some people do put that on, others don't. There's really no right or wrong answer. All right, so we have one brake pad that has this part right here, which is our it's our like squealers for letting you know when it was out, which is actually how I knew that this was out. So we're going to put that on the inside. There we go. And it just slides into place, and you can see it still moves. And then the same thing with our outboard pad. These are half moon shaped, you see. We want to make sure that follows the curvature of the caliper, or of the rotor itself. So there we are. So those are both seated in there, and now we can take our caliper. We're going to slide that slide pin back into place. Slide this down. You have to push in on the bottom, and there it is. Time to put our bolt back in. There's not a lot to this, is there? Start it by hand always. Get it close to snug, and then we'll tighten it down with our 14mm wrench. And guess what? You just did the rear brakes, at least one side of them, on your Toyota Sienna. Well, that's it. That's how easy it is to do the rear brakes on your Toyota Sienna on the ground. Jacks and jack stands, a couple of simple hand tools. Really nothing to it, my friends. Till next time, take care.